Oh, believe me. Come on, come on. We struggle with our spouses telling us what to do. Hey, sweetie, I think you need to turn there. Listen, I know where I'm going. I know exactly where I'm going. I'm taking the next left. Or you say it differently. Oh, sweetheart. He'll be all right. But in us, you feel that little, don't tell me what to do. Could it be that becomes the final question for Earth's inhabitants? Are you going to confess and admit that the God of heaven rules over everything? Here are two stories, Daniel chapter 4 and Daniel chapter 5. Not of a kingdom. They're not speaking of empires. They're speaking of individuals. Daniel did not come to Belshazzar and say, Belshazzar, because Babylon is prideful. He said, you knew better. And you have let your pride destroy your eternity. It's an individual question. You can't fix my selfishness, and I can't fix yours. William Shea, in his book, Daniel, on this question, he says, look, you've got those two individuals. Why? Why did God present it as individuals? Why? Because the question is an arrangement. The arrangement focuses on individual responsibility. It's an individual responsibility. Your spouse, while God will use them to make you more holy, it will come down to you surrendering your pride and your selfishness. The final generation is unaffected by the commotion and the confusion. Babylon, everybody's pushing for their own agenda. Is everything rigged? Absolutely everything's rigged. Was the election rigged? Oh, no doubt. On all sides, in all ways. Everybody's paying off whoever they can to get their agenda. Because they're right. We're always right. I'm always right. But the final generation becomes unaffected by this commotion and confusion. They separate themselves from the angst and the anger. They don't position or post based on the next release from Washington, D.C. They know what the world does not know, that there's a watcher, a holy one, unseen in the shadows, who rules over the affairs of men, and he will accomplish what he wants. I don't have to be the one that pushes it. What does the world need? Let me take you to Prophets and Kings. These lines, speaking of these two stories, Daniel 4 and 5, amidst the strife and tumult of the nations, he that sitteth above the cherubim still guides the affairs of the earth. It doesn't matter who's elected or who's fighting who. There's still a holy one watching in the shadows. Saying, it doesn't make sense to me. I've got this. Keep reading. The present is a time of overwhelming interest to all living. Rulers and statesmen, men who occupy positions of trust and authority, thinking men and women of all classes, have their attention fixed upon the events taking place about us. They recognize that something great and decisive is about to take place, that the world is on the verge of a stupendous crisis. They know. They know. They feel what we feel. So what does the world need? My voice saying, hey, you guys should have voted. You guys should have. We need to boycott, fix this in the church. What does the world need? What does it need in a final generation amidst the strife and tumult of the nations? What does it need? I believe it needs exactly what Daniel chapter 4 gives us. It ends, Daniel chapter 4 and 5, two stories of two prideful people, two very arrogant people. The stories end very different. For Daniel chapter 5, Belshazzar's life ends in disgrace. And that October night, under a full moon, he loses his eternity. What about Daniel chapter 4? Is there another option? Because I know I'm selfish and prideful. Is that all that's next for me. No. What does God need? He needs for his people to come out of Babylon, out of the pride, out of the selfishness, out of the arrogance. And what does that look like? Daniel chapter 4 and verse 34. Let me give it to you in Nebuchadnezzar's own words. At that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored. What the people on this planet need is a generation who have their eyes fixed heavenward, not on the media, not on social media, not on politics, not on church politics, but on heaven. And the sanity is restored. You losing your mind? Get off the news networks. Your sanity will be restored. Then I was able to see and praise the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of earth. If he could do it in Nebuchadnezzar's time, he can do it in our time. What does God need? Verse 37, now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. God needs a generation, a humble generation, one who has their eyes focused solely, only, always on him. Their own hearts. Oh. God isn't so worried about the false gods of moons. He's not worried about the false gods that lay scattered across our planet made of wood and stone. The greatest conflict for the kingdom of Jesus is your selfishness.